I love the parable of the talents, and I want you to love it too. I was raised in my dad's church on the Revised Standard Version of the Bible, so a lot of those verses are ingrained in my long-term memory. And the way the Revised Standard Version translates that one particular line that Ian just read for us is, quote, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter now into the joy of your master." That's what's ingrained in my long-term memory. And the sport of golf is very important to my family. I golf. I'm okay golfer. Our son Jackson's a really good golfer. He played golf in college. And Vicki and I have spent much of our life watching him play golf in tournaments, beginning when he was yay big, all the way through college. So whenever Jackson and I golf together, and if one of us hits a long putt, I can't help myself. And if we're playing with other people, like strangers, sometimes you get matched up with people that you don't know on the golf course. If one of us makes a long putt, you know what I say? "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter now into the joy of your master." I love the parable of the talents. And on this Sunday, when I'm asking us to think about money, remember this is a parable. That's important. It's a parable. Parables are stories about things that never happened that always are. That's what parables are. And almost without exception, there are some exceptions, but almost without exception, parables many times are theaters of the absurd. For these three slaves, these three servants, the one that is cautious, the one that is kind of smart, and saves his master's money, he gets nailed. My Bible commentator, my favorite Bible commentator, puts it this way: this parable frustrates our efforts to summarize the way God works into neat, coherent systems. Neat, coherent systems. That's not what this parable is about. And this parable is not about money. Yeah, it is. I guess it is. I guess it is about money. But it's not really about money. But it is. And both of those can be true, you know. It's not really about money. But it is about money. That's true. Both of those are true. But it's really about this question. You ready? And when I say this, I hope you don't, but you can tune me out for the rest of the morning. That's how important this is. I hope you don't, but this is it. It's one question. This is the controlling question of this parable. Are you going to spend your life, or are you going to bury it? Are we going to spend our lives, or are we going to bury them? That's what this is about. Not everything that can be counted counts. Not everything that counts can be counted. I think it was Einstein who said that. Not everything that can be counted counts. Not everything that counts can be counted. And one of my mentors said this to me 40 years ago or so, and it changed my life. It changed the way I looked at money. He said to me, "Jay, money is a real blessing in some people's hands. Money is a real blessing in some people's hands, and I've seen it. Over these many years in my ministry, I've seen it. I've seen how money can be a blessing in some people's hands. So today, I'm going to tell you 3 stories about money. Story number 1. God rest his soul, my good friend Bill, who died too young of cancer. I was serving a church in Chicago, and you wouldn't know it by looking at him, and you wouldn't know it by talking to him, but you would know it if you knew what his job was. You would know that Bill was wealthy, because Bill was an Ivy League law school graduate, and he worked at a law firm in downtown Chicago. This is back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and there weren't any cell phones. And so I would call him on the phone, and one time he said to me, he was in his office, he said, "Jay, you are one of the rare few people who when I answer the phone and it's you are one of the few people in my life when I don't start a machine on my phone that charges money." You know? He said, "You're one of the, Bill was wealthy. Bill had season tickets to the Chicago White Sox, the baseball team. And Bill would often take me to a White Sox game. We both loved sports, we both loved baseball. And during one of these games, the White Sox during those years were not good at all. So we had a lot of time at these games to talk about things other than baseball. And Bill was a member of my church, and Bill loved church. He loved his religion. He was supportive of the church and the pastors. And so we got to talking about God one day at Comiskey Park, and we got to talking about money. Somehow we got on the subject of money. And Bill took out his wallet. Got money. He took out his wallet, but I can't get to it. Okay, he took out his wallet, and he opened it up. And he had a lot of money in there. I don't know, a couple $100. That's a lot of money to me. And he opened up his wallet, and he looked, and he showed me his cash, and he said, "You know what? This isn't mine. It's God's." This isn't, it changed the way I looked at money. He said, "This isn't mine, it's God's. And I get to be a steward of this money." Not everything that can be counted counts. Not everything that counts can be counted. And money is a real blessing in some people's hands. Here's story number 2. The nice thing is when the preacher says he's got 3 stories, then you know we're going to conclude, right? That's one of the good things. So story number 2. This is a bank money bag. You can tell it's blue, it's got a zipper, and it says Park National Bank. The Park National Bank. Has anybody in our congregation had any sort of connection with Park National Bank? So, oh gosh, I don't know, 20 years ago or so, I was asked by a friend to do the funeral of his, to officiate at the funeral of his beloved mother. And I, of course, said yes, and I didn't know any of the family. I knew my friend, and it turned into quite an adventure because my friend was raised in a very small town in West Virginia, down along the Ohio River, and it was Appalachia, to say the least. And so it was a Saturday morning funeral. I got up early that day and drove down to this tiny town along the Ohio River. And it was a small Baptist church I'm always nervous when I'm in Baptist churches because I'm afraid they're going to find out, you know? They're going to find out about me. But it was all good. It was all good. And I just want to tell you that it was a very Appalachian experience. And I mean that in a very loving way, but these people were Appalachian in the way they looked, in the way they talked, and I always pace a little bit before I do something that involves being in front of people, and so I was in the basement of the church doing a little pacing and feeling good about being there, and one of my friend's relatives walked up to me and handed me this. And he said, "Pastor, thank you. Thank you for being here today." Now, I want you to understand what this means to the preacher. This was before the service. This was not after. This was not a grade. It's not how I did. And I said, "Thanks." And did I open it up and look at it before the service? You better believe I did. And he went away, and I thought, what's in here? And it was filled with change, ones, fives, some 20s. It was quite a bit of money. And it was obvious to me that they had, air quote, passed the hat. It was obvious that before the service, when I wasn't in there, it meant so much to me. Not everything that can be counted counts. Not everything that counts can be counted, and money is a real blessing in some people's hands. Okay, the last money story. The last money story about choosing to spend our lives instead of burying them. This is a money bag. This one says U.S. Mint, cents. C-E-N-T-S, some of you can probably see that. Cents. $50. Please do not cut bag when opening. Return to U.S. Mint. So I haven't returned this to the U.S. Mint yet. Actually, about 20 years ago or so, I was preaching this sermon. Obviously, I'm not using a script today, so I've talked about this stuff before. But I went to a local bank when I was living in Akron, and I walked in and I said to the teller, I said, "Hi, I'm a minister, and I'm going to preach a sermon about money, and I need a money bag as a teaching tool. Would you guys lend me a money bag?" And she looked at me like, "What?" So she looked at me, I could see her mind going, what? And she said, "Sure, keep it." So she went back and she gave me this. You see, when I had a paper route, Marysville Journal Tribune, who has a subscription to the Marysville Journal Tribune here? Well, I was a Marysville Journal Tribune paper boy when I was in 5th and 6th grade. And so I had it for 2 years, so I got to do 2 Christmases, and during Christmas, people tip you. This is also, obviously, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. I mean, paper boys, right? And so I was a paper boy, and my first Christmas, and whenever it's called collecting. On Saturdays, you collect, right? Marysville Journal Tribune was a Monday through Friday, and then Saturday mornings you go to people's houses and you collect. And this Saturday before Christmas, you get tips. And whenever I collected on Saturday, I always had a money bag. Not this one, but I had a money bag. And I would put the money in there, and I would ride my bike, right? Holding my money bag. And I got, some people gave me 5. Some people gave me lifesavers. I remember getting lifesavers, right? Thinking, Okay. Now, I'm sorry, if you gave your baby boy lifesavers, I'm sorry. I don't want to insult you. Not just one roll, you know, multiple rolls, but it's like, okay, thanks for the lifesavers. And, but at the end of my route, I had, you know, probably $100 tips. It was just, I had more money than I could imagine. And somehow, from my last house, with God as my witness, I'll put my hand on 3 Bibles and tell you it's the absolute truth. I lost my money bag. This is why I've shared this with some of you. Every church I've ever served, when anybody, I have a policy, when anybody comes up to me, like after the service, and they say, oh, Jay, Pastor Jay, I forgot to put this in the collection plate, which here, my policy is no. No. Give it to Ian. Give it to somebody else. Don't give it to me. I'll lose it. I lost it. Now you need to know, as I've shared with you before, that Marysville was a small town back then, about 5,000 people. It's 25,000. But it was 5,000 people, and everybody in town knew my dad as the pastor of the Presbyterian. Everybody knew him. And I went home, I lost my money bag, and I went to my room. And I cried. I felt so stupid. And I cried. I wept. About an hour or 2 passed, and I was still in my room, and I looked out the window, and I saw a police officer walking up to our door. And I went downstairs, and he was holding my money bag. Somebody had found it, had opened it, and looked inside. I had put Christmas cards in there with my name on them. Somebody found it, took it to the police station. And they figured out that I was my dad's son. I was Jack Groat's son. This was when I was in the 4th grade. Not everything that can be counted counts. Not everything that counts can be counted. Money is a real blessing in some people's hands. And when we live that way, when we spend our lives instead of burying them, we can hear those words, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter now into the joy of your master." Amen?
Amen.
Amen.